Fallout Nevada is one of the oldest, biggest, and most loved fan games on the classic engine, and it was created in the unlikeliest of places. Now, if the country of Russia had an asshole, where do you think it would be? It would be right here, of course. Barnaul, Siberia. The first McDonald's in Barnaul opened in 2016, closed in 2022. The town is home to Alexander Pongelushin. When he was but a boy, Alexander was taken to the Siberian shamans, who performed the ritual of Oiknt-Bday, the dance of bone. They called him Zhinsklat, which is Russian for the one who can show us the way through winter fog. Alexander became a messiah of classic Fallout, responsible for 50% of all existing total conversions made on the old engine. And this is not an exaggeration. There is this guy, and then there is the rest of the community, and these two entities are about equally as productive. Fallout Nevada is available for free and in English. The game has its own modding scene. Here on my hard drive I have 4 different builds of Fallout Nevada. In this video I'll be showcasing an exotic version of the game that has a bunch of untranslated Russian mods and enhancements built in. Our character is going to be a wasteland ranger and a mixed martial arts hobbyist. And once we hit late game, I'll get into firearms, since playing a purely melee build can get a little stale. Our name is James. Now, mispronouncing words is my superpower, so I need a name that is impossible to fuck up. Jamies. Here's a quick guide to skills and stats in Fallout Nevada. You'll get an opportunity to obtain a basic energy weapon relatively early, so these kinds of starts are viable. There is quite a bit of arena combat, so unarmed is good. Science, and especially repair, are frequently checked, as is the speech skill, which I choose to specialize in. James is supposed to be a wasteland explorer, so outdoorsman seems like a good in-character choice. I pick a one-handed trait, which is very powerful for pistol users. Quite a few good pistols in this game. Nevada doesn't feature permanent followers, but the version of the game I'm running includes a companion mod that introduces a dog, a tribal, and a ghoul follower. Ironic correction. I will not be showcasing the companions, as the person who made this build forgot to include his own mod in the installer, and I failed to notice that in time. The adventure begins in 2140, 63 years after the Great War, 20 years before the events of Fallout 1. Master's agents are already active in the wastes. Shady Sands is just about to be founded. We received a brain injury that led to memory loss, says the doc. A stranger, a biker, brought our unconscious body back to Vault City. This place should seem familiar. Vault City was a major location in Fallout 2, but it's still under construction. It's not a city, more like a Vault Hamlet. The biker used an unknown non-lethal weapon to disable the security team and the overseer. He stole something from the vault, some sort of a high-tech device, and then he fled. Our job is to track him down. Note that some of the talking heads you'll be seeing in the video might have been added by the mod pack. The quality is not quite on the level of Sonora. Funny, the Vault cops keep Harold locked up behind a force field. Yes, it's the very same Harold. Him being here feels, fan-servicey. The design doc has pages upon pages of Fallout 1 script analysis justifying Harold being in Nevada. He has been a mutant for 38 years, used to be quite a caravaner. Says he knows about this place because a former associate of his, Richard Gray, got drunk once and let it slip that he was from Vault 8. The starting equipment we were issued includes a flask and a Mauser pistol. A tasteful choice of a weapon. The Mauser is underused in the original Fallout. But the real elephant in the room is the 2-tile inventory system. Yes, 20 years later, the modders finally fixed one of the biggest problems with the Fallout UI. We stumble upon 2 Vault dwellers touching each other. Scandalous. This is a punishable act. The residents of Vault 8 are forbidden to touch each other's bodies. God damn, I love this game's graphics. Despite being engineered with simple 2D tiles, a well-put-together Fallout scene can be picturesque. The Vault dwellers don't know much about the outside world. The location of the community is to be kept secret. The biker's name is Jay. A quiet little town. The locals cautiously whisper behind our back. This community is called Black Rock, named after the Black Rock Desert in Nevada. This is where the annual Burning Man festival takes place. The dwellings were constructed out of the festival pieces. Have you seen Jay the biker? Yeah, he came here, bought food, then rode south, probably towards New Reno. Black Rock is a community of people who, for various reasons, failed to fit in the big city. This guy is an ex-Reno ring fighter. He's not so tough. I have a good feeling about James' MMA career. These two are escaped slaves, with collars around their necks. You know, the ones that explode. I believe this is actually a Fallout 3 invention that was kind of clever and caught on. Asshole characters can intentionally detonate the collars, or we can convince the trader to accept the escapees. But not all the locals are welcoming. This is the ethical dilemma of Blackrock. The player's actions will ultimately decide if this place becomes more open to outsiders. After collecting a blood sample from a mole rat, we get infected. Disease is a new status effect. You get it by interacting with corpses. I'm not sure what it actually does. Our attributes seem to be unaffected. Gerlach's community is another settlement of Reno refugees. They are about to burn alive one of their own because he accidentally broke the water pump. Mr. Gerlach himself is an ex-caravan guard. He's all about strict discipline, rules. This dialogue is a very rare instance of the game checking the player's age. Gerlach will respect older characters a little more. Fine, I'll fix your shitty water pump. Since we're not that great at repairing things, at least not yet, we should go back to Vault City and requisition the necessary parts from the Vault warehouse. And this is when the game explores the darker side of our community, the tradition of conscripting wastelanders to do manual labor. If we can make Gerlach's people respect us, it might be possible to persuade them to move closer to Vault 8, where they'll basically work for food. It wouldn't be melodramatic to call it slavery. Since there are experienced trappers living in Blackrock, we should stick around for a while longer and learn their craft. A new mechanic. We use the whistle the hunter gave us to lure the geckos into traps. This must have taken forever to set up scripting-wise. Another side quest involves us exploring a gecko cave and stealing their eggs without harming the animals themselves. This is the second and the last time the whistle is actually used in this game. The final task sends us to a remote part of the desert to hunt down an ancient red scorpion. And who are you? I am not here to answer your questions, Wanderer. I have come to warn you. About what? The mysterious man telekinetically punches us from a distance. I'm not going to say this twice. Forget your search, or else you'll go with the other clean souls. Clean souls? What the hell does that mean? The scorpion attack hurts like a motherfucker, but James disables the creature with a lucky critical in the eye area. The end of the legend, he says. It's possible to craft armor from the scorpion bits, but James is not skilled at that kind of nerd shit. The Vault City patrolmen instruct us to stay away from the highways. Too much traffic, too dangerous, they say. But this is actually the opposite of what we want to do. The world map in Nevada is designed a little differently than in other Fallout games. There is this huge mountain cluster in the center that's surrounded by a ring of highways. All major settlements are connected by these highways. This is where the content is. And here is the map of the regions. Each region has its own table of random encounter maps and creatures. The variety of those is pretty good. Better than in Sonora, but worse than in Fallout 2. And, of course, there is a solid library of unique special encounters, like this Dr. Strangelove reference. The Cheyenne don't trust outsiders. They have a good reason to be suspicious. A local raider gang forces them to pay tribute. One of the warriors will be following us as long as we are in the area. Be careful when playing with a snake, says the chief. The location was inspired by an audio recording of a Native American fairy tale performed by a musician from Barnaul.
Эта сказка называется «Сказка о прыгучем мышонке».
The author is the Cheyenne writer Jaime Yost Storm. Cool name. Weird that they don't seem to have a Wikipedia page. Charles Storm, pen name Jaime Yost Storm, was the son of a German immigrant who claimed to be Cheyenne. He misappropriated and misrepresented Native American teachings and symbols from a variety of different cultures. White people love to be named Jaime Yost Storm. The Reaper of Souls dropped his seed on our fields, complains the chief. The women can't gather food. Well, that's your problem. The design doc says it's a piece of a Saturn rocket. We should kill these before they learn how to talk. The warrior escort won't be following us to the nearby urban area. Lovelock is a really existing town in Nevada. Not sure about real life, but in-game this place is occupied by a raider gang. We get detained, taken to Big Louie. Call me boss or I'll make you piss blood, he says. We don't know this yet, but he's one of the central characters that is directly responsible for many story narratives in the western part of the world map. Louie drafts us into his gang. Together with two raiders, we are to travel to Hawthorne military base. The journey takes about a week. Our task is to get past the automated defenses and obtain pre-war weapons for the raiders. This entire sequence, us entering the town, getting detained, talking to Louis, joining the raiders, traveling to Hawthorne, takes about 40 or 50 seconds of real time. The game needs to calm the fuck down and let us look around and breathe. Anyway, Hawthorne is an actually existing military base, as well as a small town. We won't be staying here very long, but I am impressed that the devs cared enough to create unique graphics for this place. Our prize is on the other side of the fence. The automated defenses can be avoided or disabled. Might as well sacrifice our raider buddies since they won't follow us to the next area anyway. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the unarmed build is bad at dealing with twin minigun turrets.
Ветер пустыни высушит ваши кости.
There is barely any voice acting in Nevada, and the bits that are there are not very good. More automated defenses deeper in the base. We'll have to find a control center or a power plant or something, a way to disable them all at once. This area is an exploration puzzle. We cleverly avoid the turrets by climbing on top of the warehouses. And then, like Gordon Freeman, we make it inside the main facility via the ventilation system. This is the first power armor part we find. Nevada hates giving you any kind of armor, really, and the titular power armor suit needs to be slowly assembled over the course of the entire game. The advanced security mech is very hard to kill, but easy to disable. All it takes is a lucky crit in the sensor lenses. Notice that there are train tracks everywhere in this game. One of the consoles disables the power plant and all the automated defenses. The base can now be safely looted. This is an early-ish rocket launcher. Doesn't make the big gun starts viable, but it's better than nothing, I guess. Now that the turrets are disabled, we can search the command building. The soldiers stationed here were tasked with observing Vault 8, our home. What's so special about our vault? The base also had a problem with mass desertion. This report was filled on October 22nd, 2077, a day before the Great War. We found a cool, unique 10mm pistol and a parade uniform. James has no way of knowing this yet, but later on he'll encounter a faction very interested in these items. Despite the aforementioned pacing issues, the Lovelock Raider community is much more developed than its Fallout 1 counterpart. There are even unique graphics, clothes drying in the sun. Knowing the devs, it's probably possible to steal them and infiltrate the raiders or something. Louis, the big man, congratulates us on a job well done and officially welcomes to the gang. This is the beginning of a very long and involved quest chain. Our next task is in Reno. We are to find a guy called Stryker and collect tribute. But before we do that, some of you might wonder if Gecko is in this game, the Fallout 2 ghoul settlement that's supposed to be right next to Vault City. And yes, it is a location we can visit. The ghouls haven't moved in yet, so it's a radioactive dump populated by wildlife. We'll have to come back later. It's too dangerous to remain here without anti-rad equipment. New Reno, the biggest little city in the world. Now, my first question was, where are we exactly? Is this Virgin Street? Doesn't seem like it. The wiki says that in this game we'll explore a different area of the city, and that all the streets have real-life prototypes, since Reno is a real town. Curiously, it's the only location in Fallout Nevada that depicts a dense urban environment, the kind where it's not always clear where one building ends and another begins. The merchant sells this cool-looking plasma pistol. Coincidentally, I don't believe merchant inventories ever restock in this game. That's the ancestor of the Mordino family. Not a mafia lord yet. The man is an entrepreneur, currently in the process of being extorted by bigger criminals. Leaving the classic New Reno soundtrack was a clever choice. Hell yeah, ring fights. That's what I'm here for. Mr. Bishop, who is in charge of the ring, informs us that the fights are to the death. James spends 2 weeks fighting, killing, resting, socializing with other gym cells. It seems it would be quite inefficient and not very profitable to have your combatants fight to the death. They kill at least one person every day, and most of them seem to be slaves, and slaves can't be cheap. We are overqualified for this. I think I died once. Eventually we get to face a dangerous opponent, a fighter from Vegas. Actually, he's a piss bitch and we are a champion of Reno. We get cash, of course, but the real reward is this perk that grants +1 endurance and +2% damage resistance bonus. Anyway, what was that Louis wanted us to do? Get into this building full of armed militias and demand tribute money from their boss. Yeah, that's gonna work. Holy shit, it did work. You see, Big Louis used to be in charge of the city, the most powerful man in Reno. But then he got depressed or something and retired, distributing power between his lieutenants, who then subsequently started fighting each other. Stryker is one of them. The guy controlling the city hall building is another. There is a little vault underneath, not a Voltec design. Stryker wants us to infiltrate the place and take pictures. He is planning an operation. We don't have to participate, but the consequences of taking a side don't seem to be quite as severe as in Fallout 2. After the massacre, Stryker makes us a formal member of his organization. The main benefit is that now we get access to this old bomb shelter. Inside there is a still functioning comm station. We use it to contact the local biker gang and ask them about Jay, the person who stole important technology from our home, Vault 8. But Jay's whereabouts is something we should discuss in person. The bikers are in a nearby town of Bridgeport, our next destination. Here is a fun bit of Nevada lore. The design doc mentions a cancelled demo of the game, actually a small prequel story, that takes place in the opening hours of the Great War. We were supposed to play as a Secret Service agent tasked with escorting the Vice President to a secret government vault. After exiting an underground facility, we would find ourselves in the town of Lovelock before it was destroyed. Then the player would evade a crowd of escaped inmates, commandeer a civilian vehicle, and head to Reno. Reno is a mess. Marauders and looters everywhere. But there is still an operating police force. We make our way to the underground shelter. Yes, the same one. There are side quests. Calm down the scared civilians, help a kid find his parents. The Vice President contacts the government via the comm console. The bombs are about to fall. There is a train departing. After dealing with marauders, we can choose to stay in Reno or leave with the VP. And then there are ending slides explaining what happened to the characters we've met. The prologue was cancelled because of its scope. It would have taken 2 weeks of hard work to make, comments the dev. This is a low-key flex. For some modders, it takes about a year to add this amount of content. On our way to Bridgeport, we stumble upon another settlement. The game uses a mix of old Fallout 2 music as well as new tracks made by Alexei Trofimov, aka Nobody's Nail Machine. He also did the Sonora soundtrack. Uran City is a half-abandoned mining town. You won't be shocked to learn that ghosts haunt these streets after midnight, says the game. Oh my god, it's a Tremors gimmick! The worm creatures are hard as fuck to kill, even if we mobilize one of the locals to help us. Sure as hell glad this is not my problem. Bridgeport is an unassuming farming town. No idea why the bikers chose this place to squat in, but the locals don't like them much. The bikers are an individualistic tech scavenger faction. They roam the wasteland in search for lost technology. The bike graphics were borrowed from Fallout 3. We learned that Jay, the person we're chasing, went to the nearby Hawthorne military base, the one we cracked open a few weeks ago. Jay contacts us by sending a message to our Pip-Boy, by sliding into our DMs. I didn't even know the device had this functionality. More surprises. All Pip-Boy computers issued by Vault 8 probably have listening devices inside them. Jay disables ours. It appears there is a connection between Vault 8 and the pre-war government. This is what he was investigating in Hawthorne. Jay is a mercenary. An unknown employer tasked him with infiltrating Vault 8 and stealing a rare piece of technology. To make this possible, Jay was given an unconscious body of a Vault dweller, our body. He pretended to be our rescuer and was allowed inside. The biker didn't know what the purpose of the device was, not until much later when he studied advanced technology in Area 51. Turns out it's some sort of a high-tech data storage unit. But what data does it store exactly? Who was the mysterious employer? He doesn't know. We should find out. But it looks like we have company. We team up with Jay to battle the paramilitaries who detected us via the listening device. And then we part ways. Our job was to recover the high-tech gizmo Jay stole. With our mission complete, we should get back to Vault City and ask for further instructions. While we were gone, the community was attacked. We suffered casualties. The overseer was kidnapped. He told me that we are in danger. It was an informal conversation behind closed doors. The overseer said the changes are coming and we need to be ready for them. The attackers arrived and departed by train. In real life, Battle Mountain is a tiny town built to support gold mining. Its pre-war population was roughly 3,000 people. Its post-war population is exactly 6 bikers and 4 wild dogs. The leader of the bikers is a member of the very exclusive club of power armor havers. There are flying robots in the mountains in the northeast. We don't know where they're coming from or what their purpose is. They kill everything humanoid-shaped. This is a reference to Sigma Base, a location cut from the game. It was supposed to be an autonomous military installation that stores and launches nuclear missiles, kind of like the really existing Soviet Dead Hand or Perimeter system like it's also known. The Sigma base was planned to be a location accessible after the main quest is over. The only thing that remains of it are the robot random encounters in the northern part of the world map. More design eccentricities. Geographically, Battle Mountain is located very close to Vault 8, and yet this is the home of the best merchant in the game. A minigun, a flamethrower, a power fist, Mark II lockpick. This is endgame gear. Expensive as hell though. You encounter a home on wheels. It's a family of Vault dwellers hailing from Vault 53 and their exotic vehicle. We help them by fixing whatever is wrong with the engine. At this stage, James read enough technical manuals to become decent at repair. Remember what Jay said? Advanced technology in Area 51, near Las Vegas. The quickest way to get to Vegas is by following the Southern Highway past Bridgeport. Wind of War is based on a real location, the town of Pahrump. Las Vegas casino owner Ted Binion buried a large treasure of silver in a secret underground vault in Pahrump. In 1999, Binion died under suspicious circumstances, and one of the parties accused of murdering Binion was apprehended while digging up the vault in Pahrump. Sounds like a Fallout design document. It's actually Wikipedia. Wind of War is a community founded by the soldiers from the Hawthorne military base. They were deserters, but that part isn't common knowledge. The outer area is where the service people live. Merchants, a doctor, a mechanic. The folk from the nearby farms come here to petition the soldiers. I will now piss on your leg, as is wasteland tradition. The ignorant guard didn't buy it, but he allowed us in anyway, since we carry precious artifacts from our original visit to Hawthorne. The town is built to resemble a military base. These are the barracks. They do drills, sprints, push-ups. The instructor yells out commands. And then there is whatever that guy's doing. He counts to 3 and then runs as fast as possible into the mattress by the wall. Not sure what he's training. Here to represent the Power Armor Club is General Wesker. Yes, a Resident Evil reference. There are a few of those in Fallout Nevada. James gives him the parade uniform and the unique pistol we recovered from Hawthorne. Wesker is happy to learn about their past, even about the less glamorous parts. Unfortunately, he failed to prevent the community from regressing to what is basically a slightly more organized raider entity. Once we attempt to leave, these two will arrest and detain us for 24 hours. They will eventually return our confiscated belongings, but not our cash. So I reload and sneak around them. Time to finally visit Vegas. Mr. House won't wake up for another 100 years. The city was conceptualized by the dev team before New Vegas came out, so there are quite a few inconsistencies. Some things are the same though, like the outer wall being made out of recognizable gray panels. The motel is a caravan base, but I don't think it's the same motel near Camp McCarran. This is not shown in the UI, but the game separately tracks your reputation among the caravanners, which affects prices and dialogue options. And here is the Hoover Dam. There are a number of dam-related side quests, but the place doesn't play a major role in the story. The local technician is very useful for some builds, as he specializes in electronics. The walled area of Las Vegas is called the Clear City, or the Clean City. Street decorations, cops, tall buildings, a junk food vendor. It is as if the nuclear war never happened. And naturally, this place has a sophisticated gambling industry. Roulette, slots, gecko races, that's new. The slums, this game's equivalent of Freeside, is dominated by Hard Rock Cafe. This is a beautiful new sprite. Based on this, Hard Rock Cafe Inc. is a really existing chain of restaurants. They decorate the walls with rock and roll memorabilia, that's the gimmick. As of July 2018, Hard Rock International has venues in 74 countries. Well, let's see how authentic this place is, shall we? Wikipedia says John Bon Jovi's guitar is supposed to be here somewhere, but I don't think that's the one. These blue baseball pants were worn on stage by bassist Tony Kanal. So I'm guessing baseball pants is American for tracksuit? Brotherly peoples. This was used by Twiggy Ramirez during the recording of the Marilyn Manson LP Antichrist Superstar. And this belonged to Richie Blackmore from Deep Purple. It's a comfy enough place, but I'm getting a little paranoid about the background music demonetizing the video. The in-game cafe has a stand-up mic and a bunch of arcade machines. Past the slums, there is a bad neighborhood where the slavers have their base of operations. This is also where the Vegas fighting arena is located. The instructor offers expensive training lessons. James spends a week mastering his skills. The reward is +1 point in strength. The fighting sequences are copied from Reno. There are no named opponents, no personalities. It's funny because the spectators are scripted to yell in support of one of the combatants, so they would say shit like, "You are the best, eh, gangster?" The reward for becoming a champion of Vegas is another +1 endurance and +2% damage resistance. This stacks with Reno bonuses. So, by committing to the MMA playstyle, i.e. tagging the unarmed skill during character creation and doing basically nothing else, we got a total of +2 points in endurance, +1 to strength, +4 damage resistance, and a fuck ton of cash and XP. I'd say it was well worth it. Now, why did we come to Vegas anyway? Oh yeah, to learn the location of Area 51. There are a number of ways of doing this. The quickest is by using the power of bullying on the clerk in the city hall who is in charge of the archives. Crossing the perimeter of the base without special authorization is forbidden and punishable by law. It's best to get out of here, says the game. The layout of Area 51 is designed to closely resemble its real-life prototype. Even these signs are real, and that would be SR-71 Blackbird, the 60s tech that still to this day holds an airspeed record. In the communication station, we learn that someone used this place to track our movements in the wasteland, but this is no longer possible thanks to Jay. The aliens, or Wanamingos, are engineered FEV-based living weapons. Area 51 was the place where they tested experimental aircraft. It was also the place where they tested Wanamingos. The creatures have a very long lifespan, but most are sterile. Queens are extraordinarily rare. I just realized that they don't have them in the 3D Fallouts. It stinks in here. Wow, a flying saucer. I'm pretty sure it's an experimental American aircraft. The game never comments on this. A helmet from an environmental suit. This is another power armor part. The gross thing in the middle of the base is radioactive biomass. Wanamingos require highly radioactive environment to reproduce. Nevada doesn't feature quite as many unique weapons as Sonora, but there are some, like this auto shotgun with a drum magazine. In the security room, we find power armor schematics and a remote that turns local force fields on and off. Could be useful, I guess. But not now. James is under-equipped to handle Wanamingos. We escape via the ventilation system. You encounter a lost office. This special encounter is a homage to Interplay and Black Isle by gamers for gamers. Let's see what we have here. Photos of the devs on the wall, a room with a camera and a bunch of mannequins. This is where they assembled talking heads, I guess. One of the NPCs in the inaccessible part of the building is Chris Avalon, the other one is Fergus Urquhart. Now, this is not what this place is supposed to reference, but when Avalon quit Obsidian, he dumped a bunch of dirt on Fergus on RPG Codex. Supposedly there was a huge problem with nepotism in the company, and Fergus was responsible for most of it. Salt Lake City. Welcome to Utah. The game describes it as a dull and grey town that smells of dampness and rotten foliage. Not an inspiring introduction, but this is my favorite big city in the game. Although Salt Lake works a little better if it's the second social hub you visit, so that you are not tired of questing and side activities yet. The execution is a theatrical performance, part of the town's culture. It's basically a play and it goes on for a while. Very cool animation. A well-stocked merchant sells an environmental suit. Using Fallout Tactics sprites in the classic engine is almost always a bad idea. The color palette and the overall style are different. The Mormons are barely featured in this game. The design doc contains detailed plans of the Mormon district, but the devs ended up rejecting them because the faction they made ended up being inauthentic to real-life Mormonism. The police station. The real power in Salt Lake is the sheriff. Interesting talking head. Probably borrowed from Resident Evil or something. James is an experienced wasteland ranger, and I believe we are ready for more complex jobs. There is a problem with the local bandits. Their district is a separate area on the world map, which is cool because it communicates just how large Salt Lake really is. The farmer runs away when he sees us coming. The vibes are not good. This is a moral choice kind of thing. We can work for the sheriff or for these creepy guys. Once again, the talking head graphics seem to be borrowed from one of the Resident Evil games. My solution to the ethical conundrum is to do a bunch of drugs and beat up everyone with brass knuckles. Rest in peace, whatever the fuck your name was. By the way, I didn't mention this, but the game uses United States dollars as currency, not bottle caps. In the design doc, the developers explain that the bottle cap economy hasn't reached this part of the wasteland yet, and that, frankly, the idea of this sort of currency is a little silly to begin with. The water purification plant is missing a critical part, and it needs to be repaired by the player. Its role in the story of Fallout Nevada is similar to that of Helios 1 in New Vegas. Once repaired, we'll get to choose which faction controls the plant, and with it, the city of Salt Lake. Speaking of factions, it feels weird to be saying this out loud, but the most interesting political entity in this place is the Salt Lake Nuka-Cola factory. These guys are well equipped. The mechanic who will end up building our power armor is located here. The factory quests have a theme of negotiations and commerce, and will send you traveling all over the wasteland. Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm sold. Putting some points into the energy weapons skill and making the technician at the Hoover Dam perform 2 sequential upgrades on a laser pistol. Investigating the fate of the missing caravans eventually leads us back to Wind of War. There is some evidence that the troops are now openly robbing merchants on the highway. I can't get used to this guy being a Resident Evil character. Wesker is disappointed that his community sunk so low. Brother, you are the community. He returns the items they looted. Among them, a high-tech water filter. That's the part they need in Salt Lake. I'll deal with this later. Having explored all the major locations, we are now entering the endgame, and it's time we took care of the loose ends. A laser pistol is much more effective against one of Mingo's than a literal piece of metal strapped to our hand, but the battles are not exactly effortless. A plasma weapon James found in the biomass room has identical stats, but the animations are funnier. You know, I never liked the relationship between the Lovelock Raiders and the Cheyenne. Louis, it's time for you to retire for real. But Big Louis isn't the only son of the Reaper in the Wastes. Yeah, don't worry about these guys. Even the Reaper can't compare to you in cunning and deceit. In the legends, you will be known as Vabivagash, the White Fox. The chieftain gives us a Cheyenne amulet that provides the wearer with +1 luck bonus. Normally, you have to hold it in your hand to wear it, but the Vatnik Nazi tech I'm using comes with another exotic feature, an amulet slot. See, it's right there. It's over for the Anglo-Saxy. So, the elephant in the room. The game's weird portrayal of the Cheyenne culture complete with making up fake foreign words. The reason why this place feels so different from the rest of the game is because it's one of the few locations not written by Pojelushin, although he appears to be of a high opinion of the guest writer's work. Hey Jarlac, how's things? You still an idiot? This place is deserted. The consequence of the choices previously made. The locals can be seen in Vault City, doing jobs the Vault dwellers don't want. Gecko. The power plant is populated by hostile Mr. Handy robots. At this stage, they're not very dangerous? What the fuck? So, apparently, Mr. Handys have minigun animation files, but due to a programming oversight, their use of miniguns in combat is extremely unlikely. I never knew that! The reason to go to Gecko is this undisturbed supply room. Inside there is one of power armor pieces, which, friends, I believe we finally found the Arcanum diving suit. I think my favorite thing from back in the day was the big Arcanum diving suit drama, which went on for several months and sprawled over multiple different gaming magazines. The short version is that in one of the preview articles about Arcanum, one of the writers said that, among other things one will be able to do in this game was to put on a diving suit and swim through the rivers and ocean in the game. Multiple people would tell him this is complete nonsense, and the thing he was claiming was a diving helmet was actually a regular armor helmet. But this guy, as nerds do, doubled down on his wrong assertion, and this went on for fucking months. It got to the point where Arcanum diving suits just became an outright meme in the Bulgarian gaming community. Looking back on it, what a strange hill to make your last stand on. All these years, people were calling me crazy. Hey, look, it's the diving suit truther. Do you believe me now, you fucks? Without looking up stuff on the wiki, I managed to collect all power armor parts except for one. We access the soldier's computer in Wind of War and then fight our way through a Deathclaw-infested vault. And here it is. Back in Salt Lake, James gives the water purification device to the sheriff. This sounded like a politically neutral option. I will regret making this choice very soon. After a generous compensation, the mechanic puts all the power armor parts together. This model is called Bear or Grizzly. Being basically an environmental suit with an exoskeleton, it's not quite as broken as power armor usually is in these games, more on that later. It does, however, come with a +3 strength bonus, bringing our total to 10. We circle around the world map, coming back to Battle Mountain. Turns out there is an old government surveillance station in Battle Mountain. We can use it to track Overseer's Pip-Boy that still has a listening device inside. Good thing the kidnappers allowed him to keep the Pip-Boy. The Overseer was taken somewhere outside of the bonds of the world map. We know his location, but don't yet have the means of reaching it. The Ghost Train. People in Salt Lake know this legend well. Some believe it comes to collect souls and then transports them directly to hell. Every season, the Ghost Train travels back and forth several times, taking plenty of souls along the way. There is an old train yard in the city's outskirts. The locals never speak of it. This baby is how we catch up with the Ghost Train. The machine is too complex to be operated by a single person, so hired help is required. There are a few generic NPCs available for that purpose. Evil characters can buy a slave. You don't understand who you're dealing with. He won't be stopped even if you rally your entire pathetic vault against him. Who are you talking about? We don't say his name out loud. His ears can hear through walls. Who is he? Listen, he told me to stop you, but I don't want to get involved in your problems. So this is my last warning. Leave. Go back to your vault. Forget this whole story and the Reaper will leave you alone. Years ago, the sheriff had to make a deal with the Reaper. He didn't have a choice, he says. He collects clean souls. I don't know to what end. He is looking for the ancestors of those who survived the Great War in underground vaults. Only these people are pure enough. Our town can no longer give him what he wants. Be careful when playing with a snake. I can't decide if the sheriff is the luckiest or the unluckiest character in this story. He is a potent adversary, armed with the only ghost rifle in the game. We knocked him unconscious with a single shot in the head. It must be the lucky amulet the Cheyenne gave us. We are going after the Ghost Train, to the government vault. Now, this has nothing to do with the narrative of the video, but it's just too weird to not share with you. In the Russian version of Fallout Nevada, they use a nickname for the government vault that translates roughly as a favorite place. And via the unlikeliest of coincidences, it also happens to be the name of a village in Mykolaiv Oblast that was fought over as I was recording. For a moment there, I thought, this is it! I finally snapped! The purpose of this place was to enable the government of the United States to survive the Great War. As you can see, the vault is deserted. Who is the Reaper of Souls? He is old. He used to be a chief physician and a close friend of Mr. President. He can read thoughts. He knows that you're coming. They need new flesh to replace their own, says the Overseer. All of you are experiments, clones. You were born for this. The hidden purpose of Vault 8 was to serve as a production facility for cloned bodies so that the members of the government of the United States could live forever. When one of them dies, their brain is transplanted into a cloned body. They did this even before the war. I know exactly what you're thinking, but the movie Get Out was in theaters in 2017. Version 1.0 of Fallout Nevada was out in 2015. So this is just a very strange coincidence. The body on the operating table is Jay the Biker. I used to think the titular armor in Fallout 3 was overall the weakest in the series. Didn't look cool or original. No, this fucking garbage, grizzly or bear or whatever it's called, is easily the shittiest power armor in Fallout, both in terms of statistics and visual design. An environmental suit. Yeah, that's exactly what I need after I'm done exploring the map. The bunker doesn't have living enemies, but there are tons of these twin minigun turrets that effortlessly cut through our power armor pajamas, basically one-shotting us. And the layout of the level is cleverly designed so that you can't just shoot them from around the corner. The reason the vault doesn't have any inhabitants is because of the rebellion. From a Pip-Boy recording, we learned that despite this being a critical government installation, it also had one of them vault experiments. The subjects were fed Nuka-Cola with psychoactive chemicals. Many individuals became violent. At one point, someone decapitated the President of the United States. But since, a president is an important figure, his head was plugged into a life support system. Yes, kind of like in Futurama. A goddamn in-engine cutscene. The president talks like an even more incoherent version of Gollum from The Lord of the Rings. What are you saying, Precious? He wants to scare us? Well, fine. Let the citizen come out from cover, kneel before us, and kiss the ring. What is it, my precious? We don't have hands? Now, if the country of America had an asshole, well, I suppose it wouldn't be here. That's the boss fight, the two minigun turrets in the president's room. Thankfully, there are quite a few EMP grenades on the bodies. After the turrets are destroyed, we can converse with the president again. This time he has an actual talking head. It's much creepier than I imagined. The reason we're even talking is because the president locked the secure door behind us, and James needs to persuade him to open it. Thankfully, we had an explosive in our inventory. I have a bomb. Open the doors or I'll blow this place up. He's not kidding. Someone ordered a hit on us. Perhaps you would be interested in a counteroffer. I'm offering 50% more than whatever they paid you. All right, I'll defuse the bomb if you give me $1 million. Haha, we tricked you. You are a patsy. You must be from Canada. I make an attempt to physically kill the president's head, but not sure what happened here. Looks like the game is about to fall apart. We can convince him to let us out via a good old speech check. As we just learned, co-inhabiting a vault with an insane decapitated head in charge of the gun turrets seems like a bad idea. So most of the residents evacuated to the oil rig. That was a long time ago. The chief physician stayed behind, and when the two branches of the Enclave reconciled, he became a field agent and an administrator. His job was to make sure Vault 8 functioned smoothly. But then, years went by and he got older. Since his services were invaluable, the Enclave allowed him privileges. He used the lab here in the government vault to install enhancements. Most of his body parts were borrowed from elsewhere. He is the human version of the ship of Theseus. That might have been a better name than Reaper of Souls, but I don't mind that it sounds like it doesn't belong. The Reaper is supposed to feel alien and out of place. Citizen, this is federal property. Come out with your hands up or we'll open fire. Reaper. That's the codename the government gave you. My real name is Jason Bayham, but knowing that didn't give you any answers. I've lived longer than any of you. Your words are meaningless. Enough wasting time. The Reaper is the end boss. He has a ghost pistol and a crap ton of hit points. And that's his special ability. He regenerates lost health, but not lost limbs. As far as I can tell, he can do this unlimited number of times. But eventually James out-DPRs him to death thanks to the Mega Power Fist. We rescue the train driver we hired back in Salt Lake and flee. What worries me is that the vault isn't much safer with Jason Bayham dead. We are an organ farm for the Enclave, who are still out there on the rig. But that's something we know because of meta-knowledge. James the White Fox isn't aware of this.
Гражданин, ответьте.
Once we leave the train yard, someone from back home contacts us via the Pip-Boy. Strange things are happening in the vault, says the voice. The adventure is about to end, but even this late in the game we are not being railroaded. If we wanted, we could go finish up the side quests or stock up on meds. Is there a reason to do that? Well, I believe this is the third time Vault City was attacked in this game. So, you are the one responsible for all this. I'm Colonel Knight. I'm in charge here now, until everything functions smoothly again. This scene can be very different depending on the choices we previously made. The Colonel is from the Enclave, but if we let the Reaper live, fleeing the previous battle, he would be here now instead, explaining his designs. He thought too highly of himself. If Bea managed to seize control of the cloning base, Nevada would have become his personal empire. Remember the high-tech device Jay the Biker gave us? The one he stole from Vault 8? The cloning facility won't function without it. This last battle is optional. We can just surrender the device to the Enclave. But Knight and his strike team are not quite as tough as the Reaper. After killing the Colonel, we get to the bottom level. This is where the clones are made. So the final choice. Do we destroy the laboratory, making sure the Enclave won't bother us again, or plug the stolen device back into the machine, so that our community can take advantage of the cloning tech? In Fallout 2, Vault City does have cloning technology, but it doesn't appear to be quite as advanced as in this game, so I suppose each of the choices can be canon. James chooses to seize the tech.
Ваши героические...
It took time for the people of Vault City to process what happened and figure out their place in the world. They tried to forget this whole affair, and the position of the Overseer was eliminated. The Hawthorne military base was cannibalized by wastelanders from the nearby communities. Things were going well for the Cheyenne until other raider gangs learned that Big L was dead, and then a different asshole took his place, I guess. These end credits are not well written. Despite Stryker's victory in the factional struggle, New Reno descended into civil war for some reason, whatever. Wesker succeeded in reforming the Wind of War community, and the place became a popular destination for merchants. Good, it's one of the more fun locations in this game. Since we didn't do enough side quests, various factions in Vegas began a bitter civil war against each other that lasted for many years. Salt Lake City prospered, its industries expanded, jobs, profits, and here is the water tower we repaired. It's big and beautiful. So, Fallout Nevada. What worked and what didn't? The main story is considered by the community to be one of the weaker parts of this experience, but there is so much about it that I liked. The final revelation was cleverly foreshadowed. The residents of Vault 8 were forbidden to touch each other. Made you go, And then we learned the secret purpose of the Vault, and it makes sense. The government or the oligarchy didn't want their new bodies to be spoiled. The Get Out style plot twist is brilliant. This is one of the better Vault plots in the franchise. The biker faction was good, another very organic fit, and I liked the idea of traveling post-nuclear America on a train. Wish the game did more with that. I liked the concept of the Reaper, but the implementation wasn't good. There should have been more of him in this game. The Reaper lore is fun and all, but most of it is learned from the design document and from the project wiki. Little is explained in-game. The president's head or the sheriff should have provided exposition, and the Big Louie segment was incoherent. The Hawthorne expedition quest feels like it should have been the last one in the chain, not the first. Since most of the work on the game was done by a single person, it's very obvious that the dev attention was spread too thin in some places. Las Vegas, the Hoover Dam, Uran City, exploring these was boring. Alexander seemingly agrees. There is a design doc for something called Nevada 2.0, a complete rework of the story that effectively cuts the game in half. The entire right side of the map is gone. No Las Vegas, no Salt Lake. Instead, the developer effort is concentrated on New Reno and the adjacent areas, with the Hawthorne military base playing a more prominent role in the story. Interesting. As far as I know, this thing is not in development. It's essentially just a thought experiment. Nevada is available for free and in English, but I know my audience well. If you want more Nevada content without playing the game, watch this older review by Jackson, or this review by Digital Gecko, the game's translator.
You're not not wearing pants, are you?
How did you know that? These videos are generously backed by the members of the Diving Suit Truth Foundation via the crowdfunding platform Patreon. While the patron credits roll, I want to share some Nevada anecdotes that didn't make it into the story of James the White Fox. The game opens with a very confusing tutorial or a prologue sequence, with the character we control having no relation, none whatsoever, to the protagonist of the main story. We are to take part in an expedition to the outside world. With us, an armed guard, another guy in a vault suit, and Dr. Moreau. Yes, the very same Dr. Moreau who will end up being responsible for the events of Fallout 1. The sounds of distant thunder. The original games didn't have weather effects of any kind. The guard protects us against mutated animals as we do our science work. But then we hear a scream. A member of our expedition is dead. Dr. Moreau is gone. We are instructed to get back inside the vault ASAP. Mission aborted. The entire sequence is an artifact from an early version of the script. The player was supposed to chase Dr. Moreau across the state because of the crime he committed. You are looking at the surviving screenshots from that early version. We would pursue Moreau to Reno, then to Salt Lake City, and eventually to Vegas. He would be confronted on a roof of one of the casinos. Moreau would explain his actions. He was an agent of the government, you see. They tasked him with finding the source of mutations in the wasteland, and then he would kill the main character in a cutscene. He's in Fallout 1, so the game was rigged from the start. This plot is shit, says the design document.